This week I want to share with you a sad tale of mistrust and errors. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and hopefully you'll not suffer the same losses. In 1998 I smashed up Beefcake. Now Beefcake's the bug I do most of my videos on this channel at the minute on. I'll put a link to the playlist above if you've not seen it, the Subaru converted bug. And basically I lost the back end on a wet slippy day and hit a car coming head on, so I totally wiped the back end off the car and the shell was totally mashed up. And I guess at that young age that was my first mistake in life in terms of Volkswagen stuff. Was I only had third-party insurance. It was a pretty big jump at that age to go from third party to fully comp, so it was effectively a total loss in terms of fixing my car, and the consequence of that is I spent 20 years rebuilding it. So the hunt was on for a new body shell. I decided to try and fix the floor pan as best I could, replace the gearbox because that was smashed clean in half, and then put a new body shell on there. So I was hunting for body shells and I came across a 1961 Cabriolet body, a Karmann Cabriolet body in someone's garage. So I ended up buying that, dragging it home on a trailer, and the plan was to put that on Beefcake's old floor pan. So I started working on this shell and I decided I couldn't do it. I couldn't put the 61 Cabriolet body onto the 72 floor pan and be happy, and that's where I ended up with two project cars. So I got Beefcake in pieces and I got this new Cabriolet body. I needed to start looking for pans and building that up as a second project. So after a couple of years of dragging the body shell out of the garage, I had a single garage and they were piled on top of each other, and then behind it was Beefcake, so I had to drag it all out every time to work on beef and restore beef. I decided to ship it off to somebody I'd met through the scene. Now he was kind of doing odds and sods by himself at a home address in his backyard effectively, and I didn't have a lot of money then, so basically I gave him a few quid here and there as I could afford it, and he'd do a little bit of work here and there as he had time, and that worked quite well for a few years, just doing odds and sods to make some progress on there while there was no money to do anything. Eventually this guy set up his own business with a huge garage, and he took my car with him to continue working on there. At this point I was self-employed, so I had a little bit more money to spend on it, and I basically decided to sink everything I got into getting this project completed, and it was going to take a lot. I literally sank everything I got in there. I sold what I could sell. I've been collecting parts for many years here and there anyway, and then I spent more than I actually had as well. So lesson number 2 in this little video is don't get into debt for your car. Only spend what you've got, and it's the same thing in life I guess generally, is just avoid debt wherever you can. Don't spend money you've not got. So after a while progress had been going well, it was starting to look like a Cabriolet, and I was getting the EBGBs about the amount of value of everything I got down there and what I'd spent into it, so I was concerned about insurance. I asked him about the insurance cover and I got a text back saying that he was insured, or I thought so, and by this point I considered him a good mate, so I trusted what he said, and I trusted he'd have my back regarding insurance and cover for my car. About 5 years ago his garage burned down, the whole thing came to the ground in a big pile of ash, and in it was my 1958, as it turned out, Karmann Cabriolet. Also I had another car in parts with him, and all the parts from all the cars and 20 years of savings, and it all gone. It all got burnt to the ground. But don't worry, it's insured, right? So as you're probably guessing, my car wasn't covered for insurance. Now he hadn't covered it as part of his business. I don't know if that was a misunderstanding, a mistake, or an intentional deception. I just don't know, and I probably never will. And I hadn't got it covered as a car, so basically total loss. So the 58 Cabriolet was ash. All the parts I collected for 20 years or so were ash, and a lot of parts from the Lanchester project, again the Volkswagen building, which I'll link to again above if you want to see the first video of hopefully many. They were all gone as well, so I lost just about everything. Obviously at this point I spent a huge amount of money having it restored, and then some. So yeah, I was pretty sunk in a hole. So at this point I still thought he was my mate, and I thought we'd figure something out between us. I understood the financial loss there, but I basically said I'll throw in everything I've got from my other car project, the Lanchester, and everything I could muster basically to try and create something back from the Cabriolet, but unfortunately we couldn't find any working solution between us, and ultimately it went to court. So I then spent weeks documenting basically the whole history of the car, the relationship with the guy and his business, finding proof of purchases and receipts that went back for decades. So it was a pretty epic task, and the court date came round, which was a telephone court. Because of COVID you couldn't see anybody in person, so it was all done over the phone, and as far as I'm concerned he lied throughout the whole process. Now whether he actually believed what he said, I'll never know, but as far as I'm concerned everything he said was just balls. But ultimately the judge decided that I should have insured my own car, and that he as a business wasn't responsible for insuring my property. So there's a total loss. So what is the moral of the story? First one is insurance. If you're young and you're watching this video and you're driving around in third party, try and save for fully comp. I know insurance is a complete ball ache, it's an absolute rip-off, but if you write off, if you're precious over your car, you're going to lose it if you smash it up. And yeah, you can either spend 20 years rebuilding it like I did, or you're going to have to walk away from it. So if you're not fully comp, you've got to bear that in mind. You need to make sure that you have adequate cover, so you need an agreed valuation. So usually with the on-the-road policies you can get agreed valuations. Again, it's a complete pain in the arse to sort out and get the photos and all the information you have to put down, but do it, because the insurance companies will argue the toss to save themselves money. Unless you've got an agreed valuation on paper, the chances are you're not going to get for your car what you want back for it. Whether it be a friend that's working on your car or you're taking it to a business, make sure you have the right insurance cover. Now if you've got on the road, if it's not a project like this, if it's on the road, you need to make sure that you're insured for that car to be in someone's garage for a length of time during a restoration, because there becomes a part where a time when the car's in so many pieces, if it's a complete restoration where it's no longer a car and it's kind of a grey area. And my car insurance company wouldn't actually insure this car as a car. And I'm guilty of not going further and looking at policies outside of that, basically. So you can look for certain property insurances which might cover you, and I think some car companies do laid up insurance policies, and say I am guilty of trusting it was insured in the first place but not going further and just doing that anyway. I should have done it for myself as backup. So always have that backup of insurance if you are concerned about your losses, what you can lose, because it's potentially quite a lot. If you're taking your car to a business to have it restored, ask for a copy of their insurance. Now I was guilty of trusting a text from a mate which I thought told me he was insured, and obviously not. Now if you ask them for a copy of their insurance, it's not mistrusting, it's due diligence. You've got to check, you've got to make sure that they have cover for your property. And just by asking for a copy of their insurance, they should be able to provide you with a copy of their insurance, their business documents, just to prove that you're covered. And it's just do it. Why risk it for that simple request? If you're going to be putting thousands of pounds over a counter of that business, and thousands of pounds of your property into that business for them to take care of, you need to make sure that they can replace or recover the value of that stuff if something goes wrong, if it gets lost or damaged. Just ask for a copy of the insurance docs. So my final advice is avoid court at all cost. It is a horrible process, it's stressful. I mean, it hung over you for 2 years. I'm sure the guy on the other side of this felt even worse. It was expensive, I lost, so it cost me more money, and ultimately I spent weeks documenting all about the project and the history of everything, and finding receipts from decades back, and proof of purchases, which if you are in court I don't suggest you don't do that, but because they're important if you need to claim. But just know the judge didn't read past the first page of my documentation. He didn't know what a cabriolet was. He didn't know that I was claiming for a second car for the parts of the Lanchester that were lost. He didn't read past that first page. He purely decided his decision on whose story he liked the most, I guess. So yeah, everything you can do. Life is too short to have it sucked out of you by the court process. Avoid it. Make sure your ass is covered in the first place and you'll never have to experience it, and that is a good thing, I promise you. To finish this video, I've had a little look into insurance, at least here in the UK. Now, I wanted to recommend a company that covers laid up policies or projects, but also a company I know of and trust and have used, rather than some random company that give me a few quid on YouTube for saying the name. And that company is Brentaker, or brentaker.co.uk. Now, I'm not sponsored by these guys. I won't earn money for saying that, and I won't get a cut of any policy you may take out as a consequence of this video. I'm recommending them because I use them personally. So they insure Beefcake on an agreed valuation, and they insure the van outside. They've always done me good service, and it's kind of old school, so if you want to phone them up and speak to a friendly voice, you can sort it out over the phone, which is something I personally prefer. Now, I spoke to them about laid up policies, and they offer something they call a SORN policy. And their SORN policy is for projects that have a VIN number, so it could be a car, it could have a VIN tag. It's got to be stored in a safe location, such as a garage or a workshop, so it can't be outside and it can't be on the road. And if you're having it restored somewhere, you want to let them know where it's been restored to make sure you still got your book covered. But for a relatively small premium, you're going to be hopefully protecting what is going to be a lot of money once it's all restored and finished. Say if something goes wrong, covering your butt, especially considering the price of Volkswagens these days, they're going through the roof. So a relatively small premium's potentially going to save you a lot of money. Also, on top of that, boosted bonus. I spoke to them about a discount promo code, and if you quote People's Car after you've got your quotation, you'll save an additional 10%. Like I say, I don't get any cut of that or anything. It's just say something to help you guys out. So quote People's Car if you're going to take out a policy with them and save yourself an additional 10%. I like that. So I hope that keep your projects and you guys safe. And yeah, hope that helps. Take care. Bye bye.